And now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines and simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Lena. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. It still feels like summer.
It still does. And it's only going to get hotter from now on. And it's only mid-June.
You're right. It's only mid-June. Brace yourselves.
Certainly am bracing and not looking forward to it. But hopefully summer will be short as well, as we've seen spring and the fall will be quite short as well, right?
And I don't know, I'm trying to look for a glasses half full moment, and as long as the air quality looks pristine, I'll take the minor win.
Yeah, I mean, it's best not to get our hopes up though, right?
Which is why we have weather updates daily for you too, but no time for that in keyword news. So how about we jump into the deep end of this poll? We're going to try to clarify major headlines for our listeners, starting with that 6-day two-leg tour for President Yoon. This is our first keyword of the day.
Yoon in Paris.
So President Yoon has arrived in France to promote Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. It's the first leg of this two-nation tour that will also take him to Vietnam. So what's the latest?
Right, so President Yoon and his wife Kim Gun-hee arrived late in the afternoon at local time via Paris Orly Airport. He was greeted by the French ambassador to Korea, Philippe Lefort, and the French Foreign Ministry official. Now, from the Korean side, Ambassador Choi Chol to France, Ambassador An Il-hwan to the OECD, and Ambassador Park Sang-mi to UNESCO welcomed Yoon and Kim. And in the evening, he attended a meeting of Korean residents in France, and he asked for their help in promoting Busan's bid to host the expo, stressing that the process of bidding for the expo is more difficult than the Olympics or the World Cup because the 179 members of the BIE hold a secret ballot in each country. Now, Yoon will attend a General Assembly of the BIE, the international body that's in charge of overseeing the World Expo, on Tuesday and Wednesday. He'll be giving an English speech planned on the first day. Now, the assembly will be held in Issy-les-Moulineaux, a commune in the southwestern suburb area of Paris, and it brings together delegates from all 179 member states of the BIE. This will be the fourth presentation by the candidate cities ahead of the selection of the winner in November. So essentially, it's the last chance for Korea to kind of get their presentations and promotions done before that secret ballot. And he'll also hold a summit with the French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday as well. The two leaders are expected to talk about their countries' respective Indo-Pacific strategies, cooperation on international security issues, and cooperation on future industries such as AI. Now, on Wednesday, Yoon will attend an official reception hosted by Korea to rally support from foreign delegations. And, of course, then he'll travel to Vietnam on Thursday for a 3-day state visit. It will be Yoon's first bilateral visit to a member of ASEAN. Now, he'll hold a summit with the Vietnamese president, Vo Van Thong, on Friday and discuss ways to deepen the comprehensive strategic partnership that was established between the two countries last year. And he'll also meet with other Vietnamese officials and also attend a state dinner. And also, more interestingly, and what is pretty much the focus of this trip to Vietnam, 4 different business events have been planned, including a Korea-Vietnam Partnership Fair and a luncheon with Korean business people in Vietnam. And Yoon will be accompanied by a 205-member business delegation, which will be the largest yet under the current administration.
All right, so for the forthcoming days, we'll be covering that trip in detail. For now, let's turn our attention to education reform. This is our second keyword of the day.
Killer questions.
So the central government is set to make the college entrance exam, by some measurable standard, easier by excluding extremely difficult killer questions. This is part of efforts to tackle the country's dependence on private education. I only hesitate to say easier, but that's because that's just so relative. But tell us the details of the plan.
It is relative. I mean, some might find it easier, some might not. But of course, that's is what a lot of people are saying anyway, because these killer questions are basically these questions designed to make the test a little bit harder. And the ruling party of the government, they agreed that these so-called killer questions are an easy way to increase test discrimination, but it is the root cause of basically pushing students to private education. This has led to a significant increase in private education expenses. That's why they also agreed to exclude questions not covered in public education. Now, the decision to exclude these difficult questions from the CSAT has sparked confusion and debate about the difficulty level of this year's exam, especially as it's just 5 months away. However, the presidential office clarified that the goal is not to make the exam easier, but to remove questions that are deemed inappropriate and unfair. In recent years, the CSAT has featured several so-called killer questions that are based on university curricula, so not really in tandem with what would be high school level
material.
difficulty.
Right.
Yeah, and material. And this allows basically the private education sector to profit significantly by providing strategies to basically solve these questions. There's been a drama recently, Ilta scandal in Korea, which kind of delved a little bit into this issue. But basically, these star teachers and these hagwons making millions and millions of billions of won, in fact. And the government's decision has been met with mixed reactions. While some applaud the effort to reduce private education expenses and level the playing field for all students, others express concerns about the potential impact on the competitiveness of the college entrance process. Basically, those who can afford to send their kids to these hagwons and get these questions answered basically have an advantage, is what the concern was. Now, since March, Yoon has actually ordered that these killer questions be excluded, especially from mock CSAT tests. However, a recent mock test that was conducted in June this month included a number of killer questions and was reportedly not as easy as expected. And therefore, the head of the institute designing the exam every year resigned yesterday, apparently for failing to adjust the difficulty level of the exam. This came actually after a high-ranking education ministry official in charge of the CSAT was also replaced last week for apparently the same reason. Now, regarding the opposition party's criticism that the government is causing confusion among students and parents, the ruling People Power Party once again clarified that Yoon's remarks are aimed at establishing a fair CSAT and to alleviate the financial burden of private tutoring on households. The government plans to expand support for EBS, basically the channel which provides tutoring lessons through TV, radio, and the internet for free, as well as support for other after-school programs as well.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. The idea is to make that test more fair for everyone, including those who don't have access to private education or the budget for it. But we'll have to wait and see because that's just a beginning of the conversation. Let's turn our attention to our third keyword of the day.
1 yen rate.
So the Japanese yen extended losses against the Korean won yesterday to touch an 8-year low. This came amid differing monetary policies pursued by the two countries. For those who are traveling to Japan, certainly good news. For exporters to Japan, not so much. What's the latest?
Yeah, and in terms of exporters, it kind of depends on what products are being exported as well, because some might actually benefit from them and others not so much. Now, as of 8:23 a.m. Yesterday, the arbitraged exchange rate using the dollar as the intermediary currency touched 897.51 per 100 yen before slightly rising to the 901 range. The yen is also down 11 a bit percent from early April when the Japanese currency hit a one-year peak versus the won. Now, the yen came under pressure as the Bank of Japan kind of stuck to its accommodative monetary policy. The BOJ maintained its negative 0.1% short-term interest rate target and a 0% cap on the 10-year bond yield set under its yield curve control policy. The BOJ governor, Katsuo Ueda, said he was still waiting for signs of more sustainable inflation, indicating the central bank is unlikely to shift its loose monetary policy anytime soon. Of course, this compares with Other major central banks, including the Bank of Korea and the US Feds, fight against inflation as well. So Japan is basically taking a kind of a different approach to what major central banks are taking at the moment. And this all is causing basically the yen to depreciate. Now, traditionally, a deepening yen depreciation is considered to be particularly damaging to companies in the fields of automobiles, steel, and petrochemicals by relatively reducing the export competitiveness of Korean companies. There are also concerns that a prolonged depreciation of the yen could be detrimental to the recovery of what has been dwindling Korean exports due to slumping chip sales, mainly. However, there is a view that the yen's weakness is relatively more severe after the start of the US rate hike. But in the long run, major Asian export currencies such as the won and China's yuan will also weaken along with the strong dollar, limiting the impact of the yen's depreciation as well. So a kind of a mixed bag for depending on where you stand in the economy. But yes, it could be good news for just your average traveler going to Japan. I recently made a trip there, so I don't know if I benefited that much from the exchange
No, I think
rate.
you benefited plenty compared to the days when, just about a year and a half ago, when yen was not at the current price, not even close.
That is true. So yes, compared to that period, certainly I did profit a little bit in terms of exchange rates. But yeah, but there you have it. The yen is certainly facing some pressure, and exporters, of course, are suffering because of it. And of course, that is another headache for the government as well, because of course that ties into the economic growth and whatnot.
All right, let's move on to our fourth keyword of the day.
Arrest immunity.
So Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung says he would waive his parliamentary protections against arrest and stand in front of a judge to prove what he calls unfair investigations of him by the Yoon administration. He's saying, I'm innocent, so I'll abide by, well, the law.
Yes, that's right. So basically, there's been a lot of tense interactions and investigations between Lee Jae-myung and the current administration and prosecutors alike as well. And he told Parliament that if an arrest warrant is requested, he will personally show up for a warrant review and demonstrate what he called the prosecutor's insolence. Now, he accused the Yoon government of oppression, which he said would destroy society instantly. And he added that the government is bent on raids, arrests, and political strife without taking care of the economy and diplomacy. Now, he said the prosecution has conducted more than 300 raids in a probe targeting him, while investigating almost all of the people close to him during his years as Songnam mayor. And he said he's giving up his immunity from arrest to not give the government and the ruling party as well a pretext to divide the opposition Democratic Party. Now, by law, for those who don't know, lawmakers are immune from arrest while Parliament is in session in Korea. The system was actually enacted to prevent political prosecutions of lawmakers by authoritarian governments of the past. And lawmakers, though, can be arrested only when the majority of lawmakers consent to it. And the DP leader is currently indicted in 12 cases, including election law violations, the controversial Taejangdong land development scandal, bribery involving corporate sponsorship of Songnam's football club. All those charges relate to actions he took when he was Songnam's mayor. Now, under the current parliamentary session, 4 arrest warrant requests were actually made against DP lawmakers, including E. However, none have passed, while an arrest motion against a PPP lawmaker was passed. So it just goes to show the sheer power that the DP holds with its majority in parliament. So I think that's why I think Lee Jae-myung is more confident that he's willing to give up his immunity of arrest. But yeah, that conflict and tensions between the two sides continues.
And on to our final keyword of the day.
Blinken meets Xi.
Speaking of conflict and tensions, have you seen such a high-stakes, tense relationship? U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, the first time she has met with the U.S. Secretary of State in 5 years. The last time that happened was in 2018. Let's, of course, take a look at what was discussed.
Yeah, so it was a very surprise visit or meeting. In fact, it wasn't really out in the public or wasn't really scheduled. But Blinken told reporters that he had a robust conversation with Xi. The White House said the talks were constructive. Now, though fundamental disagreements do remain considerably between the two countries, the consensus on Monday between Blinken, Xi, and other Chinese officials was to continue high-level discussions going forward, ensuring that tensions between the two superpowers do not escalate into conflict. And Xi stressed the importance of steady relations between the two nations, adding that the world needed a generally stable China-US relationship. And he added that whether the two countries can find the right way to get along bears on the future and destiny of humanity. And he said he hopes that Blinken's visit could help in that direction. Blinken also said both sides agreed on the need for the US and China to stabilize bilateral ties. And he added that Washington had no illusions about the challenges of managing the relationship, because it is a very tricky one to manage at that. And he said the US was an advocate for de-risking and diversifying economic engagement with China as well, echoing an approach recently adopted by the G7. And he also, meanwhile, urged China to use its influence on North Korea to rein in the regime from making further provocations as well.
The talks show that both countries recognize the stakes of the rivalry. Could this set the stage for a meeting between Xi and President Joe Biden of the United States? We'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much, Adam, for today's coverage. Sorry to rush, but gotta go.
See you. It's perfectly fine. You're very welcome. See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.